Good evening. Welcome to the Town End podcast. What I'm substituting in tonight, Team Ireland Transplant Soccer podcast. Go on, the boys. Was it a tough game tonight? Was it down to 10? Was it the 10 men that killed us? Was it ruthlessness from Rovers? They were due a win. To discuss all what's happening at Oriel Park tonight, I'm going to bring in no stranger to the guest. I know a Football Ireland correspondent from the Aviva as well, Kieran Callan. Welcome to the show, Kieran.
Thanks very much, Gally, and thanks for that introduction. A tough night by all accounts here at Oriel Park. I think was Shamrock Rovers probably due a victory like that? I think so, but obviously we didn't want a situation where it was against us. I think a lot of the comments that came from the Shamrock Rovers camp this evening was that from speaking to one or two of the players, and that they have felt that they've been unlucky in the first 7 to 8 games this year. And a win like this was just kind of, how would you say, was just what they needed, a confidence boost and win. Stephen Bradley left this evening very, very happy and content with the performance, but they know themselves that they've got the squad and they have the budget and everything else that is meant to be mounting a challenge. So needless to say, they're going to start looking as this win as a springboard to climb up that table.
The thing, I echo what you said. The thing, even if you look at tonight's game, like, there's not a lot in it before they score, but even if you take them dogs, like, for the amount of limited chances we had, we were probably, I know James Rogers said on commentary, we probably slightly edged in the first maybe 20 minutes. So, like, for the little game that was in it, we definitely had a little bit more about us. And obviously, look at the sending off, we'll get into that, but it's not like we came steaming out the blocks, but we definitely had them, possession-wise, and, I suppose half chance-wise, we probably were slightly better, albeit, look, at very minimum, but we probably were slightly better in the first 25 minutes of the game.
I thought in terms of our passing ability and in terms of movement and possession, I thought we were very strong. The one thing that I kind of discovered was that there was, in the first maybe 5 to 6 minutes, both teams were, there was a couple of, how would you say, well, here we are, let's go kind of tackles, if that makes sense. And not saying that anything was let go, but there was a fair amount of 50-50 balls that were challenged very hard. There was that kind of exerting of dominance from both sides. I think Dundalk settled into the game an awful lot quicker. Who knows, is that John Martin opportunity, which was the first real kind of chance where we saw that the potential of Dundalk when they start that real one-pass movement, like how clinical they can be in cutting through a defence. It's fantastic to watch. But you're looking at the kind of the big blow that came when we were just kind of sitting down at 6 o'clock. We were told that Pat Hoban has suffered an injury. Now, we don't know the extent of the length of time that he's injured, but himself and Cameron Elliott and John Martin. Now, I don't want to insult John or anything like that, but he's not a striker. He's real kind of number 10, that kind of floating link-up player. So he was kind of on a task in which was quite difficult for him to adapt to. But he had that big opportunity, and Shamrock Rovers would have seen that as a big, big let-off. But I do think that we edged it slightly. I thought they discovered fairly quickly that they needed to man-mark Rehan Tulloch just that little bit tighter, because if, as we all know in those first couple of games, if you give him the inch, he's going to take the mile on you. It was very, very evenly matched. And then the goal from Rory Gaffney, which was very well taken, because when you see the angle in which he had to head it both past Shepherd and get into the far corner, it was very, very well taken. But it was clinical, and Shamrock Rovers were clinical when they needed to be.
Yeah, I think that's probably the glaring, obvious issue. Not issue, but the difference between the two tonight. Like, although we said we started okay, look, we could probably get straight on. Look, the goal's great. We could probably get straight on to the red card, really, because that really defines the game, as most red cards will do. But I even wonder, even without the red card, would it have made a massive difference? I don't know. You had that air of Rovers really looking for the win tonight, like you said. They badly needed that win tonight for their fans. They've gotten a lot of abuse on social media over the last couple of weeks. But let's just get into the red card. I mean, when you see it in real time, it looks a red card.
Yeah.
But, obviously we haven't got the VAR in the League of Ireland. We barely have replays and LOI TV half the time. But, from your standpoint, was there a lot of talk around the ground? It's a straight red. It seemed to be their feet at the same height, but because League Race has gotten to the ball first, he's automatically going and giving him the red. I felt personally it was harsh, but I'd like to get your perspective on it.
I think Robbie was frustrated because I think there was a couple of challenges that went in against him he felt that he was aggrieved. There was at one stage where he was juggling the ball on the ground. He was on his behind and he was trying to get the ball from away from his feet, and a free kick was given away. And I think the referee had adjudged that he had handled the ball, which was, I'm sorry, I'm not really one for criticising her, but I just thought it was a bit of a harsh decision. I think Robbie felt that he was a little bit aggrieved because there was a couple of challenges placed on him that kind of went away, and then the best way to describe it was a 50-50 ball, but Robbie's foot was high. And unfortunately, as the phrase goes, the studs were showing. And, the way I always look at this was, if it was Lee Grace and Robbie Benson, you'd be baying for blood. You'd be looking for it, and a very, very similar situation. Now, it's his first red card in League of Ireland, from what I've been told this evening. Very uncharacteristic of Robbie, a senior player who has... he's an excellent addition to any side, and I thought that this was kind of a game where he was kind of relishing. You could see that he was really, really wanted it. It was a rush of the blood to the head. It was just one of those 50-50 challenges, and unfortunately the referee, you could just see he took out the card immediately. You just knew that he didn't consult with the line person, he didn't consult with anybody else. He knew exactly what his decision was going to be, and it was a red card. Now, from the people around me, I had 3 people behind me, and they had 3 different opinions. One was saying it was a yellow, another was saying that it was no way it was a red, and one was saying it was a definite red. So it's all about interpretations. My interpretation was foot was high, boots were unfortunately studs were showing. He caught the player. The rules of the game dictate that it's a red card.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it is one of them that we kind of. I think that's going to be our talking point tonight, regardless of the resulting performance. That is one that's the issue that's going to be kind of come to a head tonight. Just on the man of the match pizza, folks, I think we'll go with, instead of the man of the match pizza tonight, I think we'll have to go with best description that wins our pizza nights. I'm not sure how many man of the match awards we're going to give away.
Best catchphrase, I think, would be
the
best.
We might give the best description of the game tonight wins our pizza competition. So look, to bring in another expert like yourself, Kieran, we're going to bring in a well-known journalist, local journalist, and media football creator, content creator, Niall Lubery. Niall, we kind of covered the first couple of, not that there was a lot happening in the early stages of the match. We did feel kind of that Dundalk were maybe slightly better, but we've gone on straight to the red card, which Kieran just been talking about the red card. From your own point of view, I felt it was harsh, and we got the letters of the law say it is a red card, but just from your own perspective, what are we thinking?
Well, first of all, Andrew, thanks for that very generous introduction. I think you might be you're definitely in the minority there with that opinion. But
I think you're great, Niall. Don't worry.
Oh, cheers, Kieran. So I think that's 2 in the fan club. So I think just on the red card, I mean, I just caught the tail end of what Kieran was saying there. I mean, like, my initial reaction, I thought my initial reaction when the challenge went in was more so he might be in a spot of trouble here. Robbie Benson, he's not, as Kieran referenced, he's not a traditionally aggressive player, but I had the benefit of kind of seeing it back a couple of times on the TV stream, and I think look, I can see why the referee Arnold Hunter's probably reached for the red. But I mean, I am of the opinion that it's quite harsh. I mean, like, at that early in the game, I think, and quite interestingly, we've just kind of got back from Stephen O'Donnell's press briefing, and the interesting takeaway from his reaction to it is that Stephen Bradley allegedly doesn't think it was a red card either. Right. So, that's like, so that's based on what Stephen O'Donnell just told us. So, I mean, look, Stephen was obviously very disappointed. He certainly felt as though the referee didn't need to make that decision so early in the game. I personally was of the belief that it was harsh. The people around me in the main stand were certainly of the belief that it was quite harsh. It absolutely sort of, it nearly kills the game stone dead for Dundalk at that point, even though, because I thought, like, obviously we've shipped a goal after 22 minutes, but I think before that we were actually, we were playing okay without playing brilliantly, if that makes sense. But I mean, but even at 1-0 down, you're thinking, look, there's definitely a route back into this game for Dundalk, because you'd be okay to think that, I suppose. But the red card, it was almost like he nearly couldn't wait to get the red card out from where I was. It was there wasn't. I know there was obviously a reaction from the Shamrock Rovers bench, given that it was in front of the dugout, but there wasn't a major, appeal from the players themselves to dish out a red card or anything like that. So, I mean, like, yes, has he gone in? He has. Like, is it as high as other red cards? Possibly not. But that was Stephen O'Donnell's 2 cents on it, and he was quite angry and obviously irritated in his press briefing there. And obviously he says that to us at least that Stephen Bradley also felt that the decision was somewhat harsh. So make of that what you will. It's not every day you kind of hear that in press briefing. So I think it kind of backs up maybe. I think that early in the game would have been kind of sufficient. Would have been, look, it's a late challenge. There's no question about it. I think that early in the game, look, I'm not a referee, obviously, but I mean that early in the game, I think, maybe look, a yellow card might be sufficient. Another one of them and you're off kind of job might have, because I do think it did kill the game as a spectacle, in my opinion. The Dundalk were never really getting back into it after that, and I just think, in my opinion, a yellow card would have been quite sufficient there.
Niall, just on the press briefing there, I hope I'm not maybe revealing too much. Has there been even discussions? And I know it's probably very early to think about it, but has there been discussions in relation to, are they going to appeal the red card? Was that question even asked?
Yeah, it was. Jerry Malone asked that question in the press briefing. Jerry's a good man for a question, as we know.
Jerry, no bother to Jerry.
Yeah, and O'Donnell quite instantly said yes, they would be appealing it. They will be appealing the red card. How far that appeal goes, whether they're successful in that is another matter, I suppose, Kieran. But yeah, that was the response to that question, is that the club will be appealing the red card, and I suppose we have to wait and see now where that one goes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's one of them, like you'd said, Niall, quickly there, that straight away the ref, because he's seen the challenge and he's probably heard a bit of an impact, he's just automatically gone, because he's obviously you don't have a lot of time in the game of football. He hasn't given himself really that much time to think.
No.
I think he's just automatically.
But like, in fairness, from where
I don't remember him emptying the bench complaining. I don't.
No. But I think even from his vantage point, he would have had the fourth official who would have had the actual line of sight. I do think there was one or two players blocking him, and then he had his lines person as well. But what I noticed kind of was that he took a step back. He wasn't being, as you said, he wasn't being surrounded necessarily by the Rovers players. But then he was obviously taking the red card. They obviously saw that and went, oh yeah, we know what's coming, so there's no need for the argument.
Yeah, I think it's a hard, like, and it's a harsh, it's not a harsh, it's a hard one to look at, because like you said, Kieran, because you're seeing it, you'd said there at the start of the show, if you go by the letters of the game, it's a red, and look, we're obviously biased. If it's a Rovers red card, we'll probably sit here all and say, oh, it's a stone wall, you should have 2 red cards. But and that's, it's a difficult one to take, probably more because of the result. I mean, look, as Niall had said, it completely kills the game. I mean, it wasn't an end-to-end game to start with, but I mean, whatever chance it had of getting up and going, I mean, there was absolutely zero chance. And in fairness, look, we'll get into the second half as well later on with Steph. It's just in there. He's in from his drive-through pizza or drive-through, whatever he had. Steph, welcome to the show. We're just on the red card incident with the game. It's like Niall had said, it hasn't killed an exciting game, but it's any chance of it really taking off for us anyway, kind of for neutral even watching it, it really, really killed its own day, didn't it?
Yeah, the competitiveness of it sort of went out the window then. The more space you give the likes of Jack Byrne, like he even dropped so deep that he was picking the ball in the 6th position, and he just freed him at the park, really. We couldn't really get near him, and then they were able to build attacks. I was very impressed with Farouja. I know he's had his injury troubles from before, but he was different level there tonight. I know there was a bit of talk coming off the back end of last season how good he was doing, and that's the first time I've seen him really, really impressed me, which was unfortunate. It came against us tonight. But look, the front three just, I thought, terrorised us, give us awful trouble. Kenny was, look, he's bags of talent. He's serious pace. He can shift the ball, and he seems to be clever because he was dragging Williams out. He span him. Williams got the yellow card for pulling him back, and look, he was probably going to be through 1-on-1 with goal. If he hadn't have done that to get the early yellow, but I thought they were so clever. Like even Gaffney, like he was pulling out, he was taking up positions inside. Davies didn't know where to go with him, leave the space, and look, I think Kavanagh's very clever as well. He holds on to the ball. His distribution and stuff like that is excellent. He never seems to give the ball away. He's sort of like a consistent Mr. Consistency for them, really. Like, and it's probably something they've sort of, I won't say they've missed last season, but with him being out injured as well, I think he's a big player for them. Even though, like, you know, he probably wouldn't be the first 3 or 4 players that be mentioned when you talk about Rovers as a team, like, you know. But like you said, just going back to the sending off, I'm obviously down in the town end section and looking up to the right, and there was umbrellas and all sorts in front of me. But from my first instincts when I seen it happening, I didn't actually see the tackle. I just seen Robbie flying in, and I was thinking, he's in big trouble here. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets sent off. And maybe the ref didn't just take a few seconds to make his mind up. I think he's seen it and just goes, this is a red straight away. And didn't give himself the chance to go, you know, who the player is. It's Robbie Benson. It's not like someone
it's not Stephen McKevitt.
It's not a Stephen McKevitt. He's going to fucking take a chance that he doesn't get the red card. But look, you know, Benson's probably one of the most clever players on the park. Like, do you know what I mean? And I think Kieran, I was just listening before he jumped on, I think Kieran mentioned he was sort of getting frustrated about the different things going his way, and I think he might have held the ball in his feet that got a foul against him. And look, it looked like a blatant foul before he was on the ground and stuff like that. So look, I think the referee was extremely poor. I think some of the decisions, the Rovers players were sort of looking at each other going, Jesus, we've got another decision here. Like, where I was looking at it, some of the boys were looking at each other going, how's he give us another free here? All the 50-50 seemed to go for them, or he just, if it was a foul on us, he seemed to play on. And, you know, it was getting, I'd say the players were frustrated as well as the fans. Like, so, but yeah, look, it totally descending off changes the whole dynamic of the game. It gives them more space. They can shift the ball out wide because they try and be compact and don't let them through the middle. But like you said, like Ferrugia was terrorising Leahy. Like I always say, look, Leahy's a steady player. You don't see many players taking him to the cleaners, but he was out at the laundrette tonight.
I was just when you said something there, even if you take, for me, it wasn't even the goals that we can see. If you take the second goal, you know, there's argument, there's a nudge on I think it's John Martin goes in injured from the corner. But even after that, we get a free kick. Now, not to skip over the goal, but we get a free kick a couple of minutes later, maybe 30 odd minutes, and it's Greg Slogger taking it, and it's such a weak free kick, and it kind of bounces and scuffles away from it. I think it might Ferrugia might take it off his feet. And they kind of run down the field. It could have been a 3-0. Rory Gaffney's missed an absolute sitter. You know, Shep's come out.
Yeah.
It just looked, at that stage, we even looked like, this game is gone. You know, it just kind of felt like that, not lacking energy, but it was just kind of, look, we've kind of had enough here. Do you know that kind of way? I think
in terms, just in relation to that, Andrew, I think, like, you can go down to 10 players in a match.
Yeah.
Right? But, you know, and I don't want to say, like, we lost the game tonight because we got a player sent off. I don't think that's necessarily the case at all either. I think, you know, there was a lot of, you know, poor play even after that. I mean, like, there's no excuse for, you know, misplaced passes left, right, and centre, which was a feature of the night.
Yeah.
And we were lucky. Like that instance with Gaffney, for example.
Yeah.
Caught in the counter constantly. There was another one in the second half where I think Conor Malley just completely misplaces a pass.
Yeah.
There's
even one with Andy Boyle. Like,
Yeah.
I know that Andy Boyle has had a very, very good season and stuff like that, but his a headed clearance went straight into Richie Tell. Richie Tell hit it first time on the volley. Yeah. And Shepherd kind of misplaced his foot and pushed it away for a corner. You know, it's kind of like who was Boyle, who was that, you know, necessarily who was Boyle heading that to. Now, listen, I'm a huge fan of Andy. Everyone knows that, but it's just like as Niall was saying, it was just those kind of small little incidences that kind of got us into trouble a little bit. And I know that one of the staff of Shamrock Rovers speaking to the team, he said, listen, he said, if we were really on form tonight, that could have been in 6, 7, or 8 tonight. And that would have been a really, really harsh night for Dundalk if it was a case that, you know, we would have conceded more and had the man sent off.
I think if you take the Gaffney chance you're talking about from the breakaway, you take the early one from Kenny, which he flashed across, it might have just even nicked the post, or somebody just, like, those 3 or 4 more in that first half even, and you could have been looking at a 4 or 5-0 halftime scoreline. You know, it was getting worrying at certain stages. Like, even if you are, I know probably wouldn't be in the DNA of getting a man sent off and just, you know, shutting up shop, even for a certain period of time, and be more compact. But we were wide open, and they were, look, Rovers hadn't won a game all season, and the fear factor coming into it was they're going to bash somebody at some stage. And I know that the sending off lends a big hand to that. And look, those I think Donald Hanks have been sending me a few things on predicted goals, and Keith Dunn had actually sent me a league table on predicted points, and believe it or not, Rovers on predicted points was actually top of the league. So, you know, they were underperforming, and you'll think it's only a matter of time before they get their first win, and they'll probably win well against somebody, and you were just hoping it'd be next week instead of this week. Again, I think the Rovers at home next week. You know, I was thinking, look, mate, I predicted a 0-0. I thought both teams might be a bit cagey, settle in, and just, you know, settle for a point nearly.
That's wishful thinking there, Steph.
Yeah. In hindsight, it is, yeah. So, but look, you know, even when you've seen the players that was coming off the bench there, to just get minutes, like Dylan Watts was one of the best players in the league last year, or was it even possibly the season before that? I think he had the most assists the previous season, and things like that. He's just coming on to get minutes because
Graham Burke.
So yeah, do you know what I mean? So Graham Burke comes on and scores, and
instantly.
Yeah. Aaron Green as well.
Well, he's shite.
Aaron Green is one of those players. I don't get it. I look at he's had a fantastic career, but I hate to see him come. I hate any time we played. I absolutely him and Killian Brennan over the years. They're 2 players I just hate to see coming off the bench. I don't know what it is about him, but look, it's like you know, we're talking about little issues there, and you know, even coming up the hand, like you had mentioned, Steph, that you know, we'd mentioned the runaway, but even before halftime, like talking about 4 or 5, even Johnny Kenny had a chance before halftime when Williams has blocked it.
Yeah,
like that could have went anywhere. Like we 100% could have been down 5-0 at halftime. That's the frightening thing. And look, I know we're down to 10, and Stevie's got a way of playing, but like I'd have to agree with you, Steph. It's rare we agree on anything, Steph, really. But you know, you don't want to shut up shop, but they just seem they never seem to have a plan B. It was like they never said, what if we go down to 10 men? What do we do? And it never seemed to really go. Now, having said that, halftime, they got in at halftime. They probably got absolutely hockeyed out of it at halftime. I know, look, they're down to 10 men, but they haven't really played well. But I thought the second half, when we came into the second half, for the first couple of minutes, I thought we played really well. They went for it. Well, albeit not creating a lot, but we seem to be stuck in a little bit more. There seemed to be right, lads. We were a man down here. We've got to start playing for this.
Yeah, I agree with you. There certainly seemed to be a feeling after half time that, you know, we can get ourselves back into this game. And I just want to pick up on something Stefan mentioned there as well. I mean, like, Rovers, I know it sounds probably silly because they've won the game 4-0, but it could have been a lot more. Like, I don't think tonight was a case of Shamrock Rovers being, you know, exhilarating or anything like that. I think, like, you know, there's still a lot of paper over the cracks with them, you feel, in some respects. I mean, like, the game was nearly gift wrapped to them. And, like, take the 4 goals, for example. If you look at the 4 goals from an individual point of view, like, they're 4 very avoidable goals.
Absolutely.
Like, even with 10 players on the pitch. I mean, the first one, obviously, the second one, when we had the 10 players, if it's a corner comes in, we don't clear our lines. The towel cross for the third one, I mean, it's completely free. The fourth one, completely unmarked. Johnny Kenny, sorry, for the towel one or the towel cross was completely unmarked.
Yeah.
Like, had the freedom of Oriel. I mean, like, those things.
It wasn't even that he was unmarked. Now, he could have took a touch. Like, I mean, he seemed to get away from, like, when there was nobody. There was no kind of threat to him of not getting that ball. He was always getting the ball. It came in, and it wasn't even. It was a chip cross. It wasn't like a drilled cross. It wasn't like a Darren Meenan cross, I suppose.
Yeah.
One of our favorite comments in here, but it just seemed to be a floated cross, and he was able to just get it. He didn't even have to lift himself off the ground. He could have just knocked it in. He actually could have probably just tucked it down and finished it. Yeah. It's a great finish, but it's little things like that. And like you had said, there's not a really top class goal. Yeah, Buck's finish is great, but I mean, it's zipped across. Look, you kind of start nitpicking. Obviously, look, we're disappointed.
It is, and in fairness, it is a great finish. But I mean, it's still a very simple goal. Yeah. It's a very avoidable goal. I mean, it's very kind of one respect, and that's where all Rovers' joy came from tonight. I mean, even the first one before we got the player set, before Benson got sent off. I mean, it's a ball into the box from Cleary. He's got all the time in the world. Yeah. Put that ball into the box before anyone's closing down, and then the back posts. You don't need to give Rory Gaffney too much of an invitation. No. Put that away, and even like Archie Davis. I thought for that goal he was very sort of static. Do you know what I mean? It was almost like it almost happened in slow motion, that first goal. Do you know what I mean? Where the ball comes in from Cleary, and you see Gaffney coming in, and Davis momentarily just sort of lapses, and suddenly Gaffney's in front of you, and he's putting the ball into a net. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that will frustrate Stephen O'Donnell more, I think, on reflection, as opposed to the red card itself, which obviously was very annoying in its own right. But I mean, there was so much sort of it was a poor performance overall from Dundalk, barring spells maybe where we looked like we might get back into the game. But I mean, you have to look at it as well. I think keep Ward's effort with 2 minutes to play, when I think Alan Manus made a double save. That was our only actual efforts on target throughout the whole game. I'm up with the correction on that, but from what I've recorded,
no, it's true.
Yeah, from what I've recorded, that's what I have. And I mean, even with 10 players, against a Rovers team that have been wounded in the last 6-7 weeks, I mean, it does have a feeling of sort of back to the drawing board for Dundalk now. And I mean, obviously, look, if we win this game tonight, it's a much different conversation, and we're talking about maybe a title charge and all this type of stuff. But I mean, look, Sligo game probably can't come quick enough. In that respect, I mean, it is definitely dust ourselves down and get back on the bike as quick as possible, because they'll want to get this out of their minds very, very quickly, because it wasn't the red card aside. You can look at the red card, maybe I know there was a penalty appeal as well. Different things didn't go in our favour tonight, but you can't really hide the fact that it wasn't. It was a poor performance, and I think we made Rovers, probably look a lot better than where they're at the moment. In spite of all the good players they have on paper, they haven't been playing well this season, and we've probably made them look a lot better tonight. I still felt, even with the reduction, I still felt, and we kind of referenced the start of the second half there, I still felt that maybe they're there for the taking. But look, it's definitely a night to forget for sure.
I'm very interested, John, just to let you know.
just to clarify that, Flo.
Yeah, no. Niall, just to pick on a couple of things that you just said there, like, I mean, I was kind of very surprised that at certain stages during Rovers' phases of attacking play that they were given an awful lot of freedom to even tee kind of crosses or passes on the edge of the area. There was even the build-up for the first goal. Like, I don't know who sent the cross to the back post, but like, he had an opportunity to take the ball down and cross it like to that back post position. Yeah. Like, if you're a defender, you know, like Stefan will tell you, because, you know, world class defenders like Stefan will know, like, you just boot it to the back to the corner, you put it into Rosie, you do whatever you can in order to get rid of that attacking threat. You don't stand off these players. Like, I know there's always the kind of thing of conceding the penalty and, you know, handballs and one thing and another, but Jesus, like, at least try and block the attempt at the cross in the first place. And, you know, like, and as you said, for the third goal for Richie Tells, like, Richie Tell had all the freedom in the world to cross it in to Johnny Kenny, who pulled away from Roger. Like, Roger should have been, like, best way I can describe this. I remember last year, Pat Hoban and Mark Connolly were absolutely baying at each other in a game against, you know, between Derry and Dundalk. But that's really what the Dundalk centre-back should have been doing. They should have been, like, absolutely frustrating the living daylights of the Rovers from three, sticking on top of them, hanging out of them almost. Like, you don't give players like Johnny Kenny and Neil Ferrugia that the freedom of the ground. They're just going to exploit you. And that's exactly kind of what happened in phases of play this evening. And I think Rovers now kind of had, like, that scoreline was very confidence boosting for them, but that's going to be a springboard for them big time going into the next couple of games. But not only that, you could see that the international break kind of came at a good time for them. They were able to reset things. They were able to get the little niggles that they might have had. And we went into that game without Cameron Elliott, without Patrick Hoban. Like, they're two big losses for the front line for Dundalk. And, you know, John Martin had a kind of a bit of thankless task at times. And, you know, we were a little bit toothless, I think. And that's just, you know, that's not a slight on anybody that was playing this evening. We were just that little bit of spearhead that we needed up front from the likes of Patrick Hoban. Like, we just didn't have it tonight, unfortunately. And, you know, he does lead from the front. And that was just a big turning point before we even kicked the ball.
I think one of the things I said a few weeks ago was that I felt that we might struggle for goals in this side. I know we had a lot of attacking players, but even if you go back to the draw of the game, we didn't really have many attempts on target. You go back to the Pats game where we won really well. I think every shot on target we had went in. So, like, you know, it's not like we're creating chance after chance after chance. Like you said, the John Martin one was a great move. We cut them open, but he blazes it over. And then aside from that, you've the Ward shot, which turns into a double chance. And obviously, it looked like a smashing save from Manis from where I was standing, and I haven't watched any replays back.
It was.
But, like, it's not like you can say the sending off again. We can go back to that, but, like, it's not. We're not creating bags and bags of chances, which is a massive worry going forward. Like, and even touching back on the first one, like, you try and, Kieran said, you try and cut off the cross because we know it's a mismatch. Gaffney against Davies is a total mismatch. Like, Gaffney's lethal in the air. He's big. He attacks the ball well. You know, and he screams for about twice or three times, and picks up a great position, and it's a great ball. And for him to direct it in from there, it's a smashing header. But okay, try and if it's a mismatch like that, you cut off the supply. It just seemed like it was a little bit too easy for them to pick out the passes, even at that stage when we did have 11. So, look, it totally galvanises them, and if Fenton's gonna kickstart their season, it's a 4-0 win against us in Oriel. Like, you know, there's no point in sugarcoating it. I think a lot of, like, even when Wardy came on there, he was trying to get things going. He had a couple of nice 1-2s with Ryan that created the chance and stuff like that. Like, you know, boys that in games like that will come on, and I don't want to say, like, players coming in from outside the league and don't really get the whole Rovers rivalry yet, but the likes of Wardy, he knows what it's all about. We'll give you 110%.
Yeah.
We'll try and do the right things if you want to keep the ball on. So I was half thinking, you know, we throw him in at half time. Look, maybe Stevie thought, look, we're still in it here, 2-0 down, even though we're down a man. If we can nick one, you know, we might be in for a grandstand finish or a draw or something. But look, I thought he came on a bit late, and look, at that stage the game was well up.
That was a good point, actually. I mean, like, I felt that myself, actually, even at the game. I felt like we kind of waited, an unusually long time to make a substitution, actually, considering the circumstances. Was it close to 70 minutes?
It was almost Kenny-esque. Kenny used to do the same.
Yeah.
Now, 9 times out of 10, we'd only be 1-0 down, but yeah, Kenny used to have that as well.
But like, I did feel like at that point, obviously 2-0 down to 10 players against the defending champions. I mean, like, the game plan surely at that point would have been, obviously, first and foremost, keep ourselves in the game. If we can nick a goal before maybe the 70-minute mark, we'll make it a very uncomfortable last period for Rovers. But I mean, like, it just never really materialized. I mean, we never really looked like, barring maybe that 5-minute spell, 10-minute spell after half time where we were kind of jeered up a wee bit. We never really looked like getting ourselves back into it at any real point. And Rovers Rovers didn't create much in the second half, barring the couple of goals that they got. I mean, this wasn't the case of Rovers, running riot and playing through us at every given opportunity. I mean, the goals we give away were very sort of direct and sort of, very, very preventable. And it was kind of similar to, was it one of the games, I want to say maybe the 3-0 in Tala last year, it was kind of similar to that, like, and they kind of came down to the flanks and they were just putting, you know what I mean? It was almost reminiscent of that, like, and I mean, the disappointing element of that is, it did take us up until 88 minutes to kind of get an effort on target. Look, we can talk about games, turning points, that period between John Martin's chance and then the red card came shortly after that. It's a very different game. Do you know what I mean? It could be a very, very different game. I did feel in the build up to this game that Shamrock Rovers were certainly there for the take, and I fancied us to maybe get a result here tonight. But and in the first 20 minutes, I thought we were okay. Didn't create anything, but we were okay. We weren't really giving too much away either. And then we could obviously fall behind through a needless goal. But then that big chance, that was actually a lovely bit of play from, I think it was Malley and Benson, I think it was, and John Martin. It was a difficult night for him. It was kind of isolated after the red card. That's a big chance for him to get a goal. Unfortunately, he blazes it over the top, and probably looks easier from where I am than it actually is, no doubt. But if that goes in, it could be a very different game. Maybe the red card never happens, and maybe we're all sitting, talking about a title charge. But look, it was just, it was just poor all around after that.
Yeah, I said to Kieran just when we started, I don't think you're in for that, but now, like, even red card aside, even if Robbie Benson stays in the field, and like we talked about, Steph had mentioned Rovers were kind of just, we all kind of mentioned they were excellent without being excellent, I suppose. With Benson staying on the field made a difference to the way Rovers had kind of not steamrolled us, but found it really easy. Like you had mentioned, the goals, they were so simple. With Robbie Benson being on the field made a massive difference to how we played. I just don't know. I think it was just one of those before.
I think John Flanagan put in a good point there that, like, the Rovers haven't been getting the results that they would have wanted for the start of the season, but make no mistake about it, like, you only have to look at the squad. They are a very, very good side. I think there was just games they hadn't really gotten the rub of the green, and I know myself and Niall were at a press conference last week with Stephen O'Donnell, and we were trying to even kind of look at the similarities. Was that little bit of post-European fatigue coming in to this season from this squad? And even though the age profile of the players are much older than the squad that Dundalk had in 2017, he didn't dwell on it too much, but there would have been that kind of discussion because they had played so many games at the tail end of last season. Was there that kind of slow start to their season due to the fact that they didn't have as long of a postseason, as other clubs would have? I've just seen John Flanagan's thing there, 2 red cards and 8 goals conceded by Dundalk in the last 2 games. So it's not good, but maybe it just took that little bit longer for Shamrock Rovers to get their season started. Maybe that's the case, and were they due a big result and they got it today.
We had commented, I'm absolutely milking this team Ireland on the bottom, by the way, if any lads are watching in the country there. If, Kieran, you'd mentioned very early on, I was actually near, I think it was around half, 6, quarter 7 when I realised Pat Hooban wasn't getting into the game.
Yeah.
Are we looking at someone that is all, obviously we talk about Pat Hooban all the time and the impact he has, but we're such a different team when he's not playing.
Oh, yeah.
People say it all the time, but I know, look, we've had a poor night at Oriel tonight, but he really makes them tick, doesn't he? He allows for that midfielder to have a poor game because he can drop in so deep. It's frightening how much difference he makes when he's on. If you consider he's a striker, it's such another level, isn't it? When he's out of the team, obviously we talked with John Martin. It's not his normal role, the number 9 position, but there's just such a world of difference. And that's the really worrying thing that, Steph had mentioned. We were light up front. We might get many goals this season. But when Pat Hooban's not playing, this
happened. This happened last season as well. Patrick obviously got injured, and I suppose his injury more or less coincided with us kind of the whole thing falling apart last season. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And look, we haven't really John Martin's not really a centre forward. You know what I mean? When he played for Waterford, I remember him causing us awful problems playing for Waterford, but that was as a wing player. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I think it is one of those things. I mean, we do struggle with Pat Hooban, and there's no question about that. But the reality is there's not really a lot of centre forwards you can bring in as a backup who are going to be of the same quality. Yeah. So when Pat Hooban's not playing, that you're going to feel that in more ways than one, not only for his goals scored, but also just that sort of drive and that sort of he
has that natural motivation for players, doesn't he? People watch him and say, "Look, we need to come up to this level."
Ballsy performances, getting stuck in. Do you know what I mean? That's Pat Hooban in a nutshell. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Just not taking any nonsense from defenders. You know what I mean? He's actually a dying breed in terms of centre forwards. He is, and we should be lucky to have him. But it's funny, we saw Dave McMillan there tonight, you know what I mean, as an observer. I mean, having someone like a Hooban McMillan, kind of changing all the time, you know what I mean? It's very hard to find backup strikers who are at that level.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Find strikers of Pat's ilk anyway.
In general,
every season there's this description of, who's the Pat Hooban on the Rovers, Bows, whatever team it may be. Yeah. There simply isn't one like that old school player that Pat is, that leading the line with aggression and just blunt force trauma, so to speak, on defenders. They are a dying breed because how many times has he pulled us out of games and stuff like that and led the line? It's insurmountable. He will break the record this year. There's no question of it, but Niles just nailed it on the head. We lost last year, Mark Connolly and Pat Hooban in and around the same time. And that started when the dip on our form, and it just goes to show you, how influential, Pat is on that side. Mark was influential in the back, but Pat is more, if anything.
And I think he perfectly fits in, obviously, the way Stevie plays, because it's almost built around him, which is normally you'd assume an attacking player or a midfielder would be built around him. But God, it's only, and look, I know it's Rovers and I know it's a bad defeat, but I don't think we're being overly kind of. I hope we don't have to be over reliant on him, because that's what it looks like it's going to happen. We're going to be. If he's missing, we don't know what the injury is. I don't know if we know. I don't think now you probably heard anything yourself, did you, after the game? But
it's a muscle injury, according to Stephen. So, I mean, he said, look, he reckons it's not too serious. But look, we don't really know. Will he play against Sligo next week? I'd say he's 50-50 based on what Stephen was saying. Yeah. Play against Sligo next week. So I suppose we have to wait and see in that one. I mean, and even when you're getting him back, is he going to be fully there? So, he didn't really give away too much about the extent of the muscle injury actually is. Is it a hamstring or whatever? Probably is a hamstring. Do you know what I mean? So, it really depends on the extent of that. What we do kind of know from last season and now is we really can't afford to be without Patrick Hooban for a prolonged period of time, because, I kind of feel for John Martin tonight and in other games. I mean, it's not necessarily what he was brought in to do. He was nearly like a third option tonight because, you know, Cammy Elliott's also got a muscle injury and didn't feature tonight, you know, but we probably haven't seen the best of him anyway, you know, in terms of, you know, competitive action. Like, so, and he's very new to the league as well. So it probably wouldn't be fair to expect him to start pumping in Hoban numbers in terms of goals as well, like anyway. So, I mean, like, yeah, I do feel like there is a reliance, possibly an over-reliance on Pat Hoban at the moment. I mean, like, and I think, I don't know if tonight's even an example of that. I think, like,
I think it's one of those nights that like, no matter what would have went, it's one of those.
I think so, yeah. I think the red card has knocked the stuffing confidence-wise out of the team by the looks of it. And we never really looked like, I don't even think the red card is the reason we lost tonight. I think we genuinely, I think, going back to what you said, Andrew, I think Benson stays on the pitch 90 minutes, we're probably still losing that game based on what we saw, just in terms of individual mistakes and lapses and the kind of goals we conceded. I mean, it doesn't matter how many players are on the pitch, you're going to lose a game.
I know
those chances.
I know this is a big what if, but like, what if Hoban was having that chance? What do you think the percentage is he scores it?
That's it.
Totally different.
XG third.
Even look, if he is on the pitch and we go down to 10 men, like he's the outball. He wins us the free kicks to get us up the pitch. Do you know what I mean? So look, we're a totally different side. I think you just popped up a comment from Flano there saying that, you know, the other options are players that are more runners than players that are going to be big and strong and hold up a ball and link the play and can drop in to draw at defenders, which allows the runners then to come in behind. And, you know, it just totally changes the dynamic of the team. So, look, he's a massive loss. And then, Niall, you've mentioned, you know, you're in a catch-22. That like, how do you entice a striker of similar quality to come in and say, well, look, you know, you might get a chance if Pat is injured or suspended. You're not going to get somebody of that quality. So, look, I don't know, unless you get an up-and-coming player who's just going to come into the league, like we've seen loan players come in before, but look, it's not going to really work out like that either. So
it's not sustainable anyway. Do you know what I mean? The loans, you know, it's...
And look, we've seen some of the better strikers go out of the league in the last season or so. Like Keena was impressive last season. He's gone. I think a lot of the Brexit stuff sort of had that, where like Mandrew's gone. Not saying he would ever came to us, but like some of the better strikers in the league have departed. Like, so, you know what? You know, you really need to be on your ball with recruitment to come up with someone, sell them the dream of, you know, being the best backup striker in the league. So
I think also you need to set it in the terms that you're going to be playing European football, and that there is going to be, around that time, there will be squad rotation and there will be games that will need to be played. So, you know, it is something that does need to be explored, you know, by those up in Oriel Park, that, you know, it's by no coincidence that, like, and I hope I'm not coming across as insulting, but age profile of certain players is now leading to injuries. So we now need to start looking at, you know, players like that are going to come in as not a ready-made replacement, but definitely an option for Dundalk if in the inevitability that certain players like Robbie Benson, like Pat Hoban, you know, do get injured, that there is like for like to come in.
Yeah, I know, and in theory it's easy for us talking, like, but I suppose Brian Garland will be the man for the job there, so we'll have to put our faith in him. He can come up with the goods.
Lads, just on, I thought of the question when Niall had mentioned both muscle injuries, and just a comment there from Roland was just added kind of to the question. You know, Nathan Shepherd, it's a good comment. He's been down kind of unopposed almost injuries that have been down, but we've had a few muscle injuries. Are we talking, you know, is it something that's creeping into the club? Are we back to maybe calling this AstroTurf or like?
I was actually going to bring this one up. Now, as soon as he goes down injured, 3 or 4 of the boys run to the bench. Now, I thought this was tactical. I thought it was smart in some instances where obviously if a keeper goes down injured, unlike an outfield player, the outfield player has to come off the pitch. If a keeper goes down injured, you don't have to. He doesn't have to leave the pitch. So look, I don't know if as soon as that happened, 3 or 4 of the players ran over to the sideline where Stevie was standing waiting. Now I don't know if he's went down injured and then he's called the boys to come over, or if it was premeditated or what. But it gave Rovers the chance to go over as well. I've seen 3 or 4 of their players coming over as well. So look, I think they might have used that as a tactic. I mean, I could be just 1 and 1 is 4 here, but I've seen that happening a couple of times before. And obviously, if you don't play the same team every week, they're not going to pick it up and say, "Oh, you've done that last week." Like, but I sort of noticed that myself. I'm just going to say to either of you, if you had noticed it before and seen the players sprinting over to the sideline to get a bit of instruction. And look, that gave me a bit of hope to say, look, maybe we'll set up tactically. It'll be a better chance to set ourselves up, to then, keep solid for the next 10, 15 minutes and then really push to try and get some attacking plays in motion. But I don't know. Maybe I totally read that wrong, but it's just
look, I mean, I don't think Nathan's had any sort of recurring thing as far as I'm aware. Like, I mean, obviously he's gone down tonight, and he's sort of he's needed a bit of attention. But I mean, like, just to go back to the earlier point about the pitch. Like, I mean, like, it's not really. Everybody's kind of been saying this, for quite some time, obviously, and we do. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I mean, like, it's kind of hard. Like, when you look at the level of injuries we've gotten in the last couple of seasons, last few seasons, even, it's kind of hard not to correlate that with the actual playing surface. And I mean, like, I don't know how often these surfaces need to be replaced, but you can clearly see, even from looking at it on television pictures, that it's to say that the current ones run its course would probably be an understatement. Like, you know what I mean? It's like it's in tatters. Like as is Derry City.
Sorry, no, just to cut. I didn't mean to cut off you. But
he did.
I know that Derry City have. I know that Derry City, the county council have already said that their 4G pitch is due for replacement next year. Now, from my recollection and from hearing it from other media sources, that we're a year behind them in terms of we have laid our pitch a year before them. So in reality, if their pitch is due for replacement next year, ours would be due for replacement this year. Now, just listening to LOI Weekly this week, and I was listening to Robbie Benson speaking about a particular injury. It seems to be the same type of injury that's necessary that has happened with Dundalk players before, that there seems to be an issue with pelvic injuries and that kind of, those kind of muscular injuries. You only have to look at Daniel Kelly and Mark Connolly up in Derry getting the same type of injury. It seems that there was an issue with hamstrings. It's becoming like, look, we all know the financial benefits of having the 4G pitch in Oriel Park in terms of the amount of football that's played. I know Martin Connolly spoke about it at the Gavin it is. But there is, there is an argument starting to come through that maybe we need to start looking at the exploration of a grass pitch at Oriel Park, because while I understand that we have ladies teams playing there and we have underage teams playing there, but at what cost long term is this going to have on muscular and injuries for our players, not just our senior players but the whole way down. So it might be something to explore. I don't know. I'm not the owner, so I can't see how much the feasibility would be that if we were to switch from our current 4G pitch to a grass pitch. Is there going to be a switch in drainage? Is there going to be a switch in terms of undersurface? All those kind of things need to be taken into account. But at this moment in time, I do think that this 4G pitch has run its course, and it could lead to serious issues going forward.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, that's the point. Basically, I mean, like whatever about returning the grass or keeping, plastic. I mean, it's beside the point, because the bottom line is, regardless, one way or the other, the current 4G pitch, as you mentioned, Kieran, needs to be replaced. Like it's an absolute bits. It's going to cause further injuries this season, next season, season after. I mean, like it just, it's. I'm not a huge fan of them anyway. I mean, like obviously we're all different.
Yeah, no. As a football, someone who coaches kids, like we train. And look, it's great to have a facility like the Dundalk Sports Centre, because our pitch is on the water at the minute. But I detest. I don't like for kids. I'm just not. Look, it's great as an option. Bad weather. Look, I get it. I get the benefits of it. But for football, it's like a snooker table. The ball moves too quick. You got to be really technically gifted to keep a ball at your feet on them at such a young age. Look at them. And maybe it's old school. Maybe I'm showing the age, but I think grass is the way to go. But again, like Kieran, you'd said, the expense is just we don't. But then I don't know if it's any more expensive to lay a new one.
Like that's what I'm saying. Like how much does it cost to actually put these in? Like I wouldn't know now personally, but it's. Look, obviously the lads, the guys around the club obviously have their own, reasoning for continuing with the artificial surface. So I suppose we'll just wait and see what happens. But I'd like to see them go back to grass. I just think it's causing more problems than it's probably worth at the moment. And the level of injuries that the team's getting, this season, last season, the season before, I just think it's kind of. I don't think it can be a coincidence, especially when they're similar injuries. Do you know what I mean? They're, as Kieran mentioned, they're muscular injuries and injuries that you would probably associate with it. Do you know what I mean? I just think, look, I just think it's becoming an issue for us now, and maybe something that needs to be looked at in the near future.
Yeah, I think. Just interesting fan of there. This I remember bringing this up in a private conversation before. Even for training on matches, should the youth system maybe come out and play? Like, I don't know what way it works in Rovers. I know they've got the training grounds and they've got not to compare, but I don't know if the youth system plays out of there, if they all play the I'm not really sure, but there's a facility, there's land in town. I mean, like John's brought up a perfect point. I've been crying for years.
The youth teams. Sorry, the youth teams. From what I know, playing Roadstone, I think it's only the senior men's and senior ladies playing Tala.
Right. And I just think
the rest play Roadstone.
Yeah, as an option there in town, even for the youth, like you've Bellew Park, that's been used. It's used. It's a schoolboys pitch, but no club plays out of it as such. You've also got, as John mentioned, and I've been very vocal about this pitch for years. The De La Salle field is one of the. I don't want to get too into it, but it could be it's like a hidden gem down there. The land in there is frightening. You've got 3 schools coming together. Look, it could be a conversation for another day, but I definitely think there's something in it there, even just for clubs. For Dundalk Credit Union have come on board this week with the girls setup and they've got their jersey sponsor and stuff like that. But they're on about this sustainability. You got a few different grassroots up. There's no point in hand picking the best of the best in town, putting them up on a dodgy pitch up in Oriel Park and giving them injuries that they didn't buy into. You kind of need somewhere that grassroots to come from somewhere. On 3G pitches are great; they have their place. I get it, but you need to develop land in the area. Like there's not many. If you come halfway through Dundalk and you go north of Dundalk, where Fatima would be, or the Castle of Bells are based, there's no facilities. Like unless you've got your own, you have to go inside to a gym. Like a school gym. There's no artificial grass unless you're a Gaelic club. There's very little kind of facilities for kids, for schoolboys football. And look, everybody's got their own pitch, but I think there's an opportunity there with this new sustainability, that this patron that's coming up in Oriel Park, to really have a go at it locally and look at some land and kind of develop it.
I do know last season, just being involved with Glenmuir first team, and it could be the under 14s, under 15s, Dundalk boys actually played there quite a bit for the home games. They might have played all the home games in Glenmuir, and look, they've done quite a good bit of work on the surface. Like it's a good surface, especially coming into the next couple of months when the weather starts getting better and stuff like that. We played in it last night, obviously, but look, I'm sure I'm sure the local clubs around the town would be delighted to host a League of Ireland underage game involving Dundalk. I know last summer I went down and watched Jason McConville's ladies team. They played against Shamrock Rovers in Mahablemore, grass pitch as well. So look, I think that could be something that gets the local clubs involved with Oriel Park as well, facilitating.
Because there is some fantastic pitches like locally.
Yeah,
it builds good relationships. Like, I know for years, and look, I don't know if it still happens or not, but like Kenny would bring his team down to Clancy Park down the Quay as well, and they'd train down there on the regular. Little things like that, building relationships. The youth players get to play on grass as well. And look, it's always great to play in Oriel if you're. I know when I was coming through the system and you were playing under 18s and you were playing against home farm up in Oriel Park, like there was nothing like it. But look, if you're playing in good pitches around town as well, and I think that could be an avenue that they could go down. I'm sure that they're exploring a lot of things, but that's another one that could be that could suit everyone involved.
Yeah, I think with definitely the sponsors that are now coming on board, and I think that it's even the simple things. It's even great to see the younger, the schoolboy or not the schoolboys, the underage squads in Roy Park have jerseys that are sponsored. Like instead of having to get rid of the Bet Regal and they're blank. I'm just hoping now. I seen a comment on Facebook or on Twitter last week when they were launched. I'm hoping to go on sale. I'm hoping they're able to get them into the shop, and the girls might get a bit of money out of their jerseys and sold a little bit of something. I know it all goes to the club, the development, but you'd like to have that option of buying that particular jersey as well. So hopefully that's something for someone to come, because it means you've got that extra option of the girls. I know it's not a girl's jersey as such, but to have that wee bit of extra, it's almost like a unique jersey with a sponsor on it, something we haven't done before. So it's great to see, because every club in the League of Ireland Women's National League is all sponsored by someone else, apart from the main senior team. It's separate. So I think it's another little thing you can add to the development of what they're trying to do in Oriel Park, I think.
The Town End Marketing Podcast.
There you go. The Town End Youth Facility Grounds for Oriel Park. We have to get our name on it.
Yeah.
But just got a good mention there from Frank. There you go. Like, there's another initiative. This is coming out in 1903.
That's good,
yeah. It's something. And these are all little things.
You see that with other clubs, and it's it's usually a very good thing. And I'm surprised maybe we haven't looked into that before. Like, there's so many great local schoolboy clubs, playing in the league.
Yeah.
Underage clubs.
I know Drogheda are very good at it. They get a lot of teams in. Not every game, but most games they do. It's a long time since we've done it. The Loud School Girls League first started. We got a couple of kids up at half time to play, but it's something. It's a bit of crack. It's pull out the goals for 10 minutes. It's just that community. Like, they're there running around behind the Town End goals anyway. So you might as well get them onto the field and get them to run about.
Get a real experience out of it,
But also it gives them an opportunity to play in Oriel. And it gets their families in, it gets their brother, their sister, or whoever get to watch. So that's more bums on seats. So that's more ticket sales and whatever. Like, so absolutely, I think it's a great initiative that the 1903 are looking to bring in.
Yeah, I think a lot of stuff like this had sort of fallen away since COVID, and look, it's starting to come back around there. So fair play to the lads for organising it and everyone involved. But it's sort of been slow. It's been a slow comeback for things like that, hasn't it? Like, really, there has been a lot of stuff that was good that sort of fell away. Like, even open training sessions where the fans could come up and meet the players, and it's a bit more of a relaxed atmosphere and stuff like that. My kids used to love going up and getting their picture taken, and little things like that. I know every manager's different, and maybe some managers don't like it and whatever it may be, but like it certainly made the fans and especially the kids like this.
But even like somebody actually mentioned that, a gentleman actually mentioned that at the AGM. Even having like some sort of open day, just where kids can get to meet the players on a set day or something. The club could put aside a couple of, or maybe do it on a training session, whatever it is. Because his argument at the time was, the only opportunity the kids really have is just, jetting onto the pitch at the end and maybe getting a selfie or something. With
and I know they do great work. They've got their camps. I know they do, camps and stuff. But it's an expensive way of doing things. So open days, absolutely one training session. A lot of clubs in England would do it, and I think it's all that community based stuff. That's what kids look at. Kids are very easily pleased when it comes to stuff like that. It's just getting them involved and getting Oriel Park. There's half of them are even watching the match when they go there. It's just about running about with their mates. But that's what it's about,
Absolutely.
Just when we're talking, sorry, go on, Kieran. You want to say something?
No, it's just something that Vinnie Pert brought in when I remember Vinnie Pert having that open day, and you could see that the immediate connection between the supporters and the players, but it was done in a much more relaxed environment, in the sense that it wasn't post-match. There wasn't that kind of pressure after a game, or they weren't under pressure for media, for media requirements or commitments or anything like that. So it meant that there was time for supporters and players to kind of forge relationships, and that kind of was a good springboard for that season. We were a penalty shootout away from winning a treble. So, the treble that will never happen now because the eSports Cup is gone. So, it is something to kind of to look into in the future. That maybe something that the 1903 could liaise with the club at some stage, that there could be another open day like that, which I think would definitely benefit the community. And then you look at one thing that I've seen with European clubs and stuff like that is it's obviously I'm not the marketing guru up in Oriel, but you see that they get all the teams into the stand, they take a photograph of the entire team, the first team right down, the whole lot. That would be another great initiative, especially when you have, as you said, Dole are one of the sponsors now, and Credit Union. That's great exposure for them going forward. So it's just small steps that hopefully will benefit the community and benefit Dundalk.
Yeah, and that's it. It's just simple stuff, and it's simple, just progression all the time, isn't it? That's really what we always seem to end these podcasts on, a little bit of ethical and a little bit of how many people can set off in football matches. But we'll get down to the important business of picking our pizza winner for tonight. Now, I picked out this description and I didn't clock the name. I don't know if it's a relation of yours, Niall, but I think this is probably the best description. We've got two Newberries. It's a rare enough surname, so we're going to go with this one. It's a description of tonight's match. We lost, but at least Rovers fans got soaked. So that's our pizza winner for tonight. So we'll contact Tony's Pizza, get him a text. You got to order your pizza.
That actually, Sean actually is a brother of mine. So
I kind of thought, I think there's no way.
Everyone free pizza for you. Well,
everybody's going to say it's a fix now.
And then, of course, poor Donald Hanks would be mad we didn't bring out the wheel. He'd bring that up later on if they didn't win anything.
He doesn't live in the same gap as me, so I'll get on the pizza. So,
but before we let you go, lads, just on what we're talking about initiatives, we've obviously got our t-shirts. Myself, Steph, Donald, and Chris. We've got our range of town end gear with playoff it, and for this year we brought out. We've contacted, Donald actually contacted us, Steph, didn't he? I think he was really keen to get it going again. Donald Green, and he runs a campaign, it's a rural village in Uganda, and it's Dundalk village that he's called, and sustainability and getting people, water, simple things in life. And so what we come up with is on the back of himself. Now I'm not as fancy as Chris when I do this, so this is just going to pop up straight over our faces, so you'll probably hear us but won't see us. But this has been launched. The link will be up in the morning, and you can order this jersey, this podcast t-shirt from tomorrow on. I'm not 100% on the price. I think it's €29. Please don't quote me on that if it's wrong. But all profits from this will go to this setup that Donald has. We've got we've spoken to Donald already pre-ordering, so you've got about 2 weeks to order this. So this is what's coming up now for the Town End podcast. It's sponsored by Dundalk Village. We've also got Tony's Pizzeria on the sleeve, on the left-hand sleeve. So this is our new jersey. It's right up there with anything that we've done before. So this is going to be launched. You've got, as the link says there on the packet, it's got from till the April 12th to orders, and it'll be run for about 2 weeks, and then your 5 weeks delivery is normal. So I think that's a really good initiative that we're trying to run. Really appreciate Donald for getting involved with us again for 2023, and a gentleman to deal with, and hopefully we'll get him on in the next couple of weeks to have a little chat. We also may have news tomorrow on. Obviously we always do our podcast live. But this is going to be a podcast that's live. That's probably the best way of putting it. So we may have a live in-person podcast coming up. That'll be announced tomorrow. So stay tuned for that as well. Steph's going to be kept out of it. But I bet you we get a full house for that one. We get our names faced in the paper. So that'll be coming tomorrow, folks. So look, lads, it's been a pleasure as always. Appreciate everybody for listening in, tuning in. Thanks for everybody's comments. To play off it for our apparel sponsor, to Dundalk Village, our main sponsor, and to obviously Tony's Pizzeria as well. If Sean Newbury contacts Tony within the next week, or Vinny within the next week, he'll get his pizza sent out to him. Niall, I want to get you half the pizza, so you'll have to call out to the next podcast from the house, and we get you eating the pizza. So look, lads, really appreciate it. I think we'll give Steph, we're going to give the last word to yourself, because you are the expert when it comes to this.
I think Darren Meenan said, no pass, no points.